Welcome, ladies, to the Real Estate InvestHER Show, providing inspiration, strategies, and insight to empower women investors to live balanced and financially free lives. Now, here are your co-hosts, Liz and Andressa.
So in today's episode, ladies, you're in for a real treat here. We have Krista Mashore. She's actually been in the top 1% of realtors nationwide for 20 years, and she's personally sold over 2,200 homes and averages 100 homes a year. She's an author of many books and has really propelled multiple businesses to millions of dollars. And I think what you're going to get a lot from today's episode is we talk a lot about online marketing. We talk a lot about video, and it's just some great tips around the power of video and what it's doing to the audience. But I think what you'll most appreciate is her way of being and her thinking behind how she's building her marketing channels and how she's building her company. And we just get really real and authentic. So I think that's what you're going to get most out of today's episode.
Yeah, the secret sauce, it's not content, it's something else. And you will have to listen to the episode to get what it is. But most important, she breaks down how you can really establish your authority, your presence, your expertise in your local market. And it's just, as always, taking one step further and moving the needle. So today's episode is all about digital marketing and how can you leverage that to grow your business.
Welcome back, ladies. This is Liz.
And this is Andressa.
Welcome back to the Real Estate InvestHER Show, where we are on a very big mission to empower women to live a financially free and balanced life. And whatever balance means to you, right, Andressa?
It is, isn't it? It's like different for every single woman, and we want to honor that.
Yes. And we're all about being on this journey with you. And we so appreciate your time and energy. And we release episodes twice a week. And this wonderful episode, we have another fantastic woman to bring on to share her journey and her expertise. I'm so excited, selfishly so excited to all the questions I have are really just about me and getting my questions answered now. But Krista, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing your time with us and sharing your knowledge with our community. So we really appreciate you being here.
Oh, Andressa and Liz, I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me. I love what you guys are doing. And I love the name of your show.
That's a good episode on just how we came out with the name. We'll have to record a mini-sode about that. That's a good story.
Better than the Cougars.
Yes,
right?
Which my brother-in-law said. I'm like, there's no way we're going to be calling our show the Cougars.
Oh,
Tony.
God, that's so funny.
I know. I think it was after he had like a couple of drinks.
Why
I'm like, no, we're not calling
with that.
I think he had one too many beers. No, I love my brother-in-law. He's actually very supportive. I love you, Tony. He doesn't listen to this. That's okay. But anyway, so we're going to jump in to Krista's story here in a moment and really get into some really neat things of what she has an amazing expertise around, as we talked about in the intro. But before we go there, we'd like to just get connected to all of you. One, to thank you for all your energy and time and spending with us every week. And also just to share some sort of tip, something that's coming up for us, something that would be useful for you. Right, Andressa, just quick little tip. So what I have for you this week, it's my turn. We take turns. Me and Andressa are very polite. We go back and forth. But anyway, what I have for you today is I heard a very interesting statistic. We had Avery Carl, who he's been, a big supporter of our community around short-term rentals, vacation rentals, big investment strategy these days. And she said something interesting the other day. She said, the percentage of people investing in short-term rentals is 55% for women. I thought that was very telling. Wow. Because if you looked at multifamily, or if you looked at other, brackets or niches, if you will, in our business, it may not all be 55%. So I thought that was very telling and very, that was great to hear, quite honestly. I was like, oh, that's really, empowering. And why I say that, because so many people, since COVID, the pandemic, short-term rentals, vacation rentals has just kind of skyrocketed, the wanting of an investment in that arena. And I just wanted to give a quick shout out. She just wrote a book for Bigger Pockets, who publishes our wonderful podcast here. It's called Short-Term Rental, Long-Term Wealth. your guide to analyzing, buying, and managing vacation rentals. And she's just a wealth of knowledge. She's been like I said, a great supporter. So check that out. You can get it on Bigger Pockets. You can get it also on her website, theshorttermshop.com. We have a bunch of webinars and Facebook Lives we've done with her on a lot of neat topics around short-term rentals. So check it out on our Facebook community too. Just, free half-hour to an hour sessions we've had recently. So check that out too. But she's a wealth of knowledge, and let's keep increasing that 55%. So I like that a lot. So without further ado, Krista, I just wanted to, again, thank you for your time. We always like to ask the women that we interview, really, what propelled them to get involved in investing in your world. So you're going to be coming at it from, more as an entrepreneur and as a digital marketer. And that's what so excited to have you on here, because it's so important for investors. What propelled you to, to start your business, to jump into what you're doing now? Like what did it for you to kind of take on all the work you've been doing and grow literally significantly?
I used to be a real estate agent. So I sold real estate for over 20 years. And so that was kind of how I got into the investing side. And, my first year, I had my first husband. I'm married for the second time, for my final time, right? For many, many years now. But my husband had an affair, and I had just left my teaching job, my full-time teaching job, to be a stay-at-home mom. And so I thought, I'll just play real estate and be a stay-at-home mom. Well, then the affair happened, and I had to dive right in, right? So the first year I sold 69 homes, my first year in real estate. And then after, and then I just kept on going up from there. I've averaged over 100 homes a year every year since. So, but I realized, like, okay, the foreclosures happened, and I was a heavy foreclosure agent. I worked for about 13 different asset management companies. And I realized I was making all these other people all this money, like that I was selling them these homes for so affordable, but I wasn't investing in myself. So I made a commitment. I was going to buy one home a year. And so I started just purchasing, but I'm doing it the wrong way. I'm just going to be honest. I like to pay cash for my home. So we've paid cash for all of our rentals. And so that's, I'm not, using the money the right way, if that makes sense, but it feels good for me. And so I'm happy with it, but that's kind of how it started for me.
Wow. So looking back, oh my gosh, right? A lot of things happen in our personal lives that really give us a nudge to get started, right? And I think that a lot of women can totally relate to that. Myself is exactly, different shape, form. But looking back, you started in real estate. How did you differentiate yourself from others? And I think that when we talk about digital marketing, the biggest challenge that women investors or realtors, women in real estate, the biggest challenge, in my opinion, is that how can I differentiate myself from others, since we are all buying, selling basically the same product or service. So in terms of digital marketing, how women can idealize digital marketing strategies to differentiate themselves?
So that's a great question. So when the market got better, right? So my best year selling REOs, I had sold 169 REOs. And all of a sudden the market got better. So all of my asset management companies and banks that were giving me business, they all kind of disappeared. It almost seemed like it was overnight. I went from doing 169 to 12, right? In a year. And I had 2 kids. I was a single mom. So I realized, oh my gosh, I've got to completely change the way I'm doing things. I went on a listing appointment and I lost it. And this is the exact same strategy that I now am utilizing, that I'm going to talk to you about in my coaching business, which has helped me just go crazy in coaching. And I was like, okay, I've just lost everything. Nobody knows me, right? No one knows me because you don't market your homes as a REO agent. You don't even have flyers made, right? They were just selling so fast. And so I went on a listing appointment and didn't get it. And I said, just curious, how come you didn't hire me? And they said, Krista, we loved you, but the last guy called you the foreclosure queen. And I realized that that's how I was known or not known, right? But agents knew of me that way, but people in my community didn't know about me at all. So I realized I had to completely transform how I was marketing. So I started researching the Fortune 500 companies and how they do business. And they utilize something called content marketing, which is basically giving information, giving value. I say serving, not selling. And so I came up with the term engagement marketing, which is basically I thought, okay, I'm going to start engaging my community. I'm going to utilize it through video. I'm going to market myself on social media sites. Cause at that time, nobody was doing it. Nobody was marketing on Facebook. Right. And so I just started learning how to run Facebook ads. I started doing horrible video. But I started doing video, and I took that video and I would distribute it out to the community. And before you knew it, I was up over 100 homes again within a 12-month time frame. And none of them were short sales or foreclosures. So my goal was to have the community know me. Anytime they thought about real estate or the community, my name would come to mind. So that's how it all got started.
Well, I want to talk about what you just said, right? Those are quote unquote, you mentioned like horrible videos. And I think that a lot of the women that are listening right now, they're thinking, oh, that's horrible. Let me record it again and again and again. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, the day passed by and I couldn't come up with something quote unquote perfect in order to get it out there. And that's part number one of my question is how women can really gain that confidence and go there. And part number two of my question is how can we not tie our emotion to the amount of likes or followers that we have?
Okay, great question. So first of all, if you ask 1,000 people, do you like doing video? Only 2 weird ones will say yes, right? Like
weird ones.
No one likes doing video, especially women. We're afraid of what we look like or what we sound like. Are people going to like us? You know, we're just worried. I mean, I have this thing about my nose. I've got a big nose, and I always feel like, my God, my nose looks so big on video, you know. But and progress, not perfection. We need to be perfectly imperfect. People do not even like perfection, quite frankly. And so what I tell people is the quickest way for you to build your business, and I don't care what business that you're in, we're launching it, this to local professionals. This works for investors, right? Even especially because when you start talking about what you're doing, and then you can find off-market deals and these types of things, because believe it or not, there are so many people that do not want to list their home. That's the reason why foreclosure was so prevalent. People didn't want to list. They didn't believe it would really happen, right? And I always think like, how'd you get here? And they're like, I didn't want to deal with it. So there's so many deals out there, just like there were so many foreclosures. But if people don't know who to call or who can help them, but when you create video content, people get to know you. They start to develop something called a parasocial relationship. What that means is they start to feel like they know you. It's just like they know people that they watch on television, right? Their movie theaters. There's a thing, it's called a parasocial relationship. And people want to do business, especially when they're in duress, with people that they know, like, and trust. So the best way to develop a relationship is by utilizing video, because the person on the other side of the screen is literally getting to know you, right? So then you can break down their barriers in a good way, make them feel more comfortable, let them know your intention. And, like when I was in real estate, anytime I go on a listing appointment, a lot of times I was they were interviewing multiple agents, right? Other top producers. And I would get it, like, honestly, like 99% or more of the time, because they were seeing me on social media. They were watching my video content. They were binging me, and they already made up their choice before I even got there that they were probably going to hire me. Now, as long as once I got there, I really just knocked their socks off. It was kind of in the bag, and things like commission and that kind of thing doesn't come up because we just show our value so much. So if I can tell you this, it's like when you go to meet somebody, you can't put a bag over your head. That's what you look like. That's what you sound like. I've already made mistakes today just being on this thing. Hopefully that you guys don't want to kick me off already. People are graceful, and it's not easy. It just takes time and practice. And, you can't get better or more comfortable until you start, right? You have to just start and know that it's going to be okay. And it's the people that don't like you or that are unkind. So I don't remember where I learned this from, but it's actually pretty cool. So it's like there's hate, right? And then there's dislike, and then there's like, and then there's love, and then there's like they don't know you at all. Okay. So what's worse, somebody hating you or them not knowing you at all? It's worse that they don't know you at all. Even if they hate you and they're being mean to you, right? They always say that you haven't really made it in life until you have haters. So
that's true.
So don't worry about that. But I mean, and research also shows that the more people start to see you, the more they like you. So if somebody doesn't like you originally, you'll start to wear on people. And if they don't, you don't care, because you're going to attract the people that do, which means that the people that you work with, you're going to enjoy yourself more because you're attracting the right client avatar.
Love that. I think about video. I like video. That's probably my, and I think not like love it. Like, I don't know. And sometimes I'm like, I was doing a run with Liz and I run and then I record a video and I
Perfect
had to get over
timing.
the fact
You're
that
sweaty and
I'm sweaty, I'm
tired.
gross, I'm a hot
Great.
mess, I'm huffing and puffing. I'm like, it's just very real.
Yeah.
But, I think in a lot of ways, I've had to get over that. But in a lot of ways with video, you do become more comfortable. But I'm thinking about the women listening to this, and it's just so many successful women who are under the radar, right? They're making things happen, they're buying this, they're doing that. They're just, women are extraordinary. I'm biased, of course. We run a women's organization, but women are extraordinary and they have so much to give. They have so much to share. And we really appreciate from one another, right? Our vulnerabilities and authenticity. How can the women listening to this, that just the thought of like going on that video is hard for them? They might be a little more introverted. They might be a little quieter. Talk to us a little bit about like, what can they do? What process can they go through to keep it simple enough so they take that micro step? They don't have to create like 19 videos, but tell me a little more about that for the women who are really just honestly the thought of being on a video, beyond just running and then taping yourself. Cause I got over that, right? But I did it. For the women that aren't going to do it naturally, questions they can ask themselves, or how can they set themselves up to take that step forward? They know video is so important, but they're just like, oh. So what are some of those initial questions they can ask themselves, or just initial nudges they can give themselves?
You said a couple of really good things. You said they have so much to offer, and they're vulnerable, and we have so much to give, and we are naturally built that way, right? Most women are. And so if you can, so I'm gonna totally turn this around a little bit, and you'll see why at the end. So I experienced some physical abuse as a child from my mom. And it's something that I didn't talk about for 49 years actually. And I was at a conference and they talked about how your story can really, really help somebody and change lives. And I'm very close to my mom now. She's one of the few people that when I confronted her about it, she went to counseling with me, and she's to this day still feels horrible, which I'm like, it's great you did it because it made me who I am, right? But when I went to that conference and I learned that, how your story, like the real story, I told the story before about my divorce and how that affected me, but not like the story that really defined who I am. And when I came out, I just spoke twice, over 10,000 people in the past, month. And I talked about my story. And I will tell you that I had hundreds of people coming up to me and just saying, like, literally not hundreds crying, but women crying, men crying, people telling me like, thank you so much. Like, you helped me. Like, I'm realizing that I've been being stuck because of this thing that I have, whether it be abuse or not. And just thank you for sharing your story. And it made a huge impact on people and helping them just get out of their stuff and make leeway in their life. If you can just understand that whatever your mission is, that by having the vulnerability and the strength to actually get out there and let people see, look like, while you're jogging. Some of the best videos I do are when I'm getting ready in the morning and I have no makeup on, and people are like, we love you, that you are just so real and you don't care and you have no makeup on and you're here. And let me tell you something, I do not look, and I'm not being negative, but I look completely different with my makeup off. Like, my face is super red and I don't like the way I look. But I still do it, and people appreciate that part of me more than anything else. Like, the videos that I look like a hot mess, are the ones that get the most traction. So if you think about making an impact, and, it's really an attraction-based marketing. I mean, I've been doing video content when I was a realtor I didn't do the normal things that agents do. I didn't have to work open houses. I didn't work weekends. I didn't work nights. I mean, people came to me, and it was because it was an attraction. They were calling me. I was never calling them. I'm horrible about following up. If you want, and the people I work with usually I love, right? And it's the same with my real estate business. My coaching business. Like, we have grown in 4 years. We've done just under $20 million as a brand new company, nobody knowing me in coaching, all from the video strategy, taking video content, putting an ad spin behind it, putting it in front of people, making an impact, serving, not selling, just adding value. And it's like, I'm at a point now where I'm changing people's lives. And so if you put it more about, and people that are investing, in many cases, the person on the other side that needs their help, right, is not in the best place. And many people get taken advantage of. And so if you can think that take it away from you and think about how you're helping, that will help. That's one thing. And then another thing is like, do something that you love. Start creating videos around something like that you enjoy doing and that you're really good at and you excel at. It doesn't have to be about your business. start creating video content about something that you really enjoy, that we're passionate about. Because even if you're introverted, if you're enthusiastic about something, it shows, right? And I'm extrovert, and video is even hard for me, even still after all these years. But I find that when I'm talking about something that I really am passionate about, it makes it a lot easier. So that's a really good tip.
I like the term that you use, like coming out, right? From the standpoint that you know who you are and you're going to share that, right? You're not going to share your wounds. You're going to share the scars that made you who you are. And I totally agree with you. Liz and I were at Bigger Pockets conference in New Orleans, and we were speaking to many different things. And it was a couple of things that happened there that was different for us. A lot of men came to us, and initially, right off the bat, they got very real with their own struggles, their vulnerability. It sounded to me, that's how I interpret it, that for us being vulnerable in front of them, thousands of people, right? We're sharing things over there. Allow them to be vulnerable as well and have the courage to share. It's like, wow, this is me here as well. I struggle with X, Y, and Z. And another thing that we experience in terms of like the hate, the scale, right? Not every woman supports the community, which is very interesting to see it. And it still surprises me, because to me it's a given why we created this, but it is not. For a lot of women, they are the oppressor and the victim at the same time, and they don't even know. So sometimes it's like, oh my gosh, it hurts that. But when you get hate from other women, and then it's like, oh, okay, so I guess we don't belong to the same tribe, and that's okay. But I will still share my story, my reality, and I will honor that reality as I honor yours. And I think that that's the common ground over here, that it's not that by sharing your story, you might make a standard statement that other women should do or should feel certain way, shape, or form. I love that you're like combining the coming out with a natural way for them to just be who they are and attract the people that will naturally connect with them in a very specific and strategic way. You mentioned Facebook ads, you mentioned different social media. There's a ton of social media channels nowadays, and that in a nutshell, it's so overwhelming. For the women that are here and there, where can they focus? Or is there like a top 2 or top 3 channels that they can focus and sharing their themselves to other people?
So I would recommend choosing one channel and mastering it and doing it really, really well, and being very consistent with it. When there's so many different things, and you can easily get shiny object syndrome. But if you like, 99% of my business is done from Facebook, right? I still believe it's the single best platform to market on. It has the biggest audience. Obviously, if you have a younger audience, Instagram is also great, but Facebook still, in many cases. So depending on who your audience is, you want to look at that, their age range. For investing, I'd say probably Facebook is the best one for that your audience would want to be on. It has the largest reach. But again, if you're just putting content on your Facebook page or your personal page or your business page, nobody is seeing it. You have to invest in getting exposure, right? So you can target certain behaviors, target certain people. There are going to be certain guidelines, because it is having to do with purchasing homes, and so with HUD being involved, you have to be careful with that. But we've been able to work around it like easily, right, and still reach the masses. And so that's my opinion, obviously, on it, and that's what I mainly teach. But the success that I've had has like 99% all been from Facebook advertising.
I was just going to say, so has it been more, so is on the Facebook advertising space, And then, but before that, did you build a community? Did you really go all in on your business page, or was it your personal page? Like, what was that evolution? Or did you do both simultaneously, where you were like, as you were saying, I love that term, engagement marketing. It's even better than content marketing. Content in some ways is like static. It's like,
Yeah.
I do this and it goes out, versus really what we're all in the business of, right? Is engaging people. And that's what people want to be. They want to be moved. They want to be in a relationship. They want to understand the ins and outs. They can Google, right, how to flip a house or how to buy a home, or they can Google what video equipment. We're not even going to talk about that. They can Google that. What camera? Like, just use your iPhone. Like, that's not what we're going to spend the time in. But I'm curious to hear your strategy around that. So did you actually start a Facebook? Like, what was your first thing? Did you actually just start with ads? Was that your first step, or did you do a couple of things before that and then you evolve into ads? Or
And I want to hopefully say this right, because it's been a while now. So it's been 4 years that I started. So I created a group on Facebook, right? And then started running ads and driving traffic to get people to like the group and to join the group. Then started creating content within the group, but even more so started directly targeting my kind of avatar, which at the time was just real estate agents. So I would put ads in front of real estate agents. I'd put money behind it. So I just spoke on this at Funnel Hacking Live. It's like, what do you do before the funnel, right? Like, people are loving driving traffic to your funnel or your website or wherever it might be, but you need to remember to date people before you actually want to get married, right? So I would put content in front of them. So I don't ever ask anybody to click or to download or to join until I first put in content that's engaging and helping them and adding value in front of them first. So the idea is to get people to know me, right? To break down their barriers, to see me as the authority, to develop a relationship with me, and put content in front of people. Like, for example, I'm launching to local professionals, but right now it's October. Okay. Our launch is in April. I'm not even having any call to actions until April. So that's November, December, January, February, March. We're spending 5 months just getting my audience to get to know me. Now, some people will say, well, Krista, that's expensive. It costs money. It does. But the thing about it is that once I start putting ads in front of them to actually convert them, they're so much more likely to convert. They'll stick with me longer, and they'll convert more easily. So at the initial time, it does take a little bit more cost, but the long-term results of it and the conversion, the marketing dollar in long term will be so different, right? So you have to be willing sometimes for things to go down before they can come up, right? It needs to kind of hurt a little bit and hurt your pocketbook a little bit more so that it can grow drastically towards the end.
Right. So basically converting like the cold lead to warm lead so they can become a hot
Yep.
lead. I have as real estate investors, we always talk about return on investment. And in many times, return on marketing, it's challenging to quantify or to measure, but it is possible. Not 100% guaranteed, but it is possible. So in terms of investing in Facebook ads for our regular investor that is looking to buy out of state houses or foreclosures or anything like that, and they have never done this before, what would be the monthly budget that you will recommend them to get started with Facebook ads? And what is the conversion or cost per client that you think it is an average or expected?
Okay, so it's really impossible for anybody to ever answer that, because every single type of business is different as far as conversions. But this is something that I try to explain to people. So, like, for example, last year I have one ad that I ran and drove traffic to a funnel where I can show that 48 transactions happened, seller transactions, from that one ad and that one funnel. However, we did a lot more business than that. So when you start marketing like this, okay, and as time goes by and the momentum happens, it just starts to increase so much, right? So, for example, when I first started, we'd spend maybe $10,000, a month, which is a lot for most people. I get that. Just getting content out there. And I remember it was like the first few months we didn't do well. And then all of a sudden we made like $360,000. And then we did like, within 11 months, we hit the $1 million mark, not a month, but we made $1 million within 11 months. So it took us 11 months to make $1 million. And then we did like 3 more million within like a 5-month time frame after that, right? Because it's just, it takes more time in the beginning. And then all of a sudden you just have massive results. Now, last month, we didn't even spend $100,000 in Facebook ads. I think we did around 60, and we did we did $2,000 under $2 million in sales last month. So if you look at the ads, now that is not typical and not normal. But what I'll tell you is that when I first started, right, 4 years ago, it took us like 5 months to really even start making any money. And now if you just take what I started with, 10,000, and let's just say now 60,000, it's just so different because of the momentum and the exposure, and the more people are seeing me, right? However, the average person, usually if you're on a local, like if I'm going after local people, your budget will go so much further. So for example, if I spend $500 a month, which is a good, really, really good starting range. Okay. And most people will start to increase that very quickly because they see the results. Okay. It does take a couple of months, but all of a sudden what we find is that people will have a lot of trouble, and they won't see the results until all of a sudden it's like, bam, everything just explodes. When you start having people recognize you and say, hey, aren't you that person I see on Facebook? You know it's working. And you'll notice that really, really quickly within a couple of weeks. And as you keep doing that and building trust, all of a sudden it's just like, it just hits. And the consistency factor of it, once it hits, it's like, it won't stop, because you as long as you haven't stopped doing the work. But what do most people do? They'll do it in the beginning, and then they stop. Or they'll do it and get busy and they'll stop. So they don't ever have the massive momentum. You just got to
compound effect, right?
Yes, big time.
Krista, how important is it? Like, I think about so many different expertise, right? So you're, let's take it as an agent, right? You're out there building out and saying, looking for sell properties, et cetera, and all the businesses you've started. I'm just thinking about the woman that's listening to this and go, now I have to like become an expert in Facebook ads, right? Or X, Y, and Z. And that I think overwhelm sets in for people. And it's like, for some people are like, I don't want to know that. So are there apps, are there tools, are there things you could leverage? I'm sure, I know there's experts because we've worked with them as well, but I'm just curious, for someone getting started or really ramping up their digital marketing and putting money behind themselves and what they're doing. What are some, initial steps, or even, fourth or fifth steps that they can be doing, that they don't have to figure it all out themselves, but also not make it like they're paying for the ads, right? So they're balancing their budget, right? They don't have just like all this like, money to spend on both support and the actual ad. So curious to get your thoughts on that.
So that's a great question, by the way. Uber absolutely took over the taxis, right? Because they found a bigger, better way. Blockbuster, which dominated, got completely wiped out by Netflix because there was a more effective way. There's so many different, there's the travel agent no longer exists, right? Because of Expedia and all these things. When you first learn something, it's usually a little bit more difficult. It takes a little bit more time, right? But one of my students says, it used to take me 3 hours to run an ad. When I first learned, I was like, why the heck did I do this? Now she's like, now I can literally be watching a seminar, talking to a friend and creating an ad in 5 minutes. And she has blown up her business from like 100 homes a year to just under 300. Okay. I get that things are hard, but if we want a different result in our life, we need to be willing to put in the time and energy it takes. One of the things that Alicia actually says, her husband Bob, he says, we have to be willing to do the things right now that most people are not willing to do, so that we don't have to do the things that others have to do later. So I get that things are hard, right? I get that things are difficult sometimes to learn, but once you learn, it's like riding a bike or baking cake or, being happily married. You got to work at it. And then all of a sudden it happens and it's easier. So it might be hard in the beginning, but it'll be so much easier in the end. If that helps. And it's just like anything else. Like how bad do you want it? Like how bad do you want what you want? Right.
Yeah.
Is the question I ask. And that's the question everyone listening has to ask themselves. How bad do I want true change? And when I have that true change, what's that gonna look like for me? When the way you're feeling right now, many of you, right? I mean, the ups and downs of business, the anxiety, the stress, that trickles down. When you're stressed out, it affects your marriage. When your marriage is stressed out, it affects your children. And then your children are upset, they kick the dog, and then it's this big, huge spiral. At what point are you willing to say, you know what, I'm going to adapt my behavior, adjust what I'm doing, make some changes in my life? You talked about balance, and I laugh at that because I think balance is an amazing thing, but I think it's also almost it's a really difficult thing to have. There are times in our life that, we have to focus on other aspects. Sometimes it's business, right? Sometimes it's our marriage. About a year and a half ago in my marriage, but my husband is the most important thing to me in the world. Year and a half ago, my husband actually moved out for a couple of days and we were just like at odds. And I was like, what's going on? I had been working so much, I forgot to focus on my husband. So I put my focus back on my husband and my marriage. And within a few weeks, we were right back to being where we were at. And we have to be willing to do that sometimes, right? To say yes when we should say yes, to say no when we should say no, to focus on either our marriage or our business when it needs it. And if it's at a point where you need to focus on your business, by talking to your partner and saying, hey, look, I need to put some focus here. So for the next month, I'm not going to be making dinner as much. Maybe we could eat out. Can you understand? Can you help support me on this? Not ask for permission, but ask for support, right? From your spouse. I think it goes a long way.
I love that, because many times we label ourselves as agents, as investors. At the bottom line is that we are business owners and we need to treat it as such. And if we focus on freedom of time, right? How can we leverage our skill sets and as you mentioned, say yes and say no. From a business standpoint, what are the things that have you done in your business that propel you to scale and grow? If you could share with us.
Mm-hmm. In fact, this is my husband. Hi, baby. Hi, baby. Have a good day, sweetie. So consistency is one huge thing, right? Another thing is I found for me that works is I like to get up in the morning, and the first thing that I do is I go to the gym. I work out, and the days that I don't work out and I don't work out early, my day just does not go well. So I like to be up, dressed, and ready every day with my workout complete, and have drank half a gallon of water by 8 a.m. I know that sounds crazy, but I find that my brain works better when I work out, when I drink a lot of water. So that's really important to me. And I don't give up. And I failed plenty of times when Corona hit, which has been about March, 18, 19 months ago. My coaching business was at a 6-week burn rate. Okay. I didn't realize that we were spending as much as we were making. Right. And I was like, oh my gosh, how did I even get here? I wasn't paying enough attention. I was trusting people. I take extreme ownership because it's my business, but I was trusting people and not realizing what was happening. And so I had to completely dive myself back into that aspect of the business. We just completely did a 360. I told the company, hey, we're not going down without a fight. We're gonna thrive, not survive. We'll fix this. And we just changed what we were doing. And once we found what was working, this is going to really help a lot of you. Once we found what was working, we have found that the more that we stick to that thing and refine it and test it and just do that and not do a million other things, that is really truly when we have completely just exploded. We found something that worked really well, and I was relentless about studying it and just making it, to continuing to get better and better. And there's been times we've made changes that were wrong, right? Okay, let's not do that again. And just changing one thing at a time. So we have found that changing one thing at a time and testing how that one thing does has made so much of a difference. So, and I still sometimes have to remind myself that, because like these, I get shiny object syndrome, or I feel like, oh, it's a challenge for me. I love to challenge myself, but I find that when I do that, it just takes my focus away from my eye on the prize. So figure out what your prize is, what you're really, really good at, what you love doing, not just what you're good at, and just go all in and just make it work. Because as long as you don't ever stop, it's already working, right? Even if you're making mistakes or you're failing, you're learning what's not working or what not to do. So, and I really believe that. Like, I don't just say that, I really believe that. People used to say, fail forward. And I'd be like, what the heck does that mean? I didn't really get it. Until I really thought, what does that mean? And someone's like, Krista, and they explain it to me. And I'm like, okay, that's so true. So.
I love that. And it's so powerful, because if you look at any successful business, they have a successful product or multiple products, right? And if you really said like to, when they started cars, when they started putting cars together, and you said, Chrysler, and you said to him, or, in this case, it's a man, why don't you just, try like 50 cars? Like, they just literally built one, and then they kept testing it and they kept perfecting their product. And if you take any successful entrepreneur, that's what they do. Yet so many times I feel like, in the investing world or in this world of real estate, we attract a lot of people who are, they get bored, they get kind of inundated with different ways of doing things. And I think, I always say, I say to people too, like I think about my tenure and like what I did wrong, not wrong, but what we could have done differently is go all in on one strategy, one niche. Yeah, I think there's so much power in that because you're right. I think the reason for it, and I think you said it so eloquently, Krista, is that you can study it and you can perfect it. And I know Andres and I are doing that, right? In our community, in our membership, and who, the women we're serving, what do they need and want, and how do we give that to them in a way that works? And we're not all things to all women. We're not in that business, and we got to stop that. I think in somewhere, I think society adds to that. I think it does. And I think we have to put the laser focus on, and just like you said, test it, try it, tweak it. I love that. I love that visualization. And I think women can really get around that and go full circle to digital marketing and video and becoming a local trusted expert. Go all in on that. Try it, test it, see what's going on, what's coming up for you. This is not like a one and done, right? We don't record a video and go, that just got 1 million views and I'm good. I'm done.
Can you believe if we base everything on our first episode list? We're like
wouldn't still be
210. We were like, oh, the first one was very cute. We recorded, I think, 5 or 10 times, and
it was still
God
not that
bless.
great, probably.
And that's the thing. In the beginning, you don't want people to be watching because you're not as good, and you'll get better. But
yeah,
it just takes that one person, right? Oh, meaning it just takes one person, one. You never know. You don't need 1,000 people. You just need maybe 5 really good ones or 2 really good ones, especially in investing. You're not looking for everyone. You're just looking for the one for that moment. And it gets easier. Everything gets easier. And I'll just say this, like, stick to what you're doing. Like, if you guys know, Andressa and Liz, that this is your thing, just stick to it. And just, there's something to be said about niching. The more that your research shows, the more your content speaks directly to somebody, the more likely they're going to convert, right? So the more that you're speaking directly to your avatar and their wants, their needs, their fears, what keeps them up at night, their dreams, the more that your content, your value, right, can help them. And we have been relentless about, we are so obsessed with our customers and making sure that we give them results and we help them, we provide value. That has been another reason why we have been so successful, because, I've always said people before things, and the things will come. We always put people before things. And if it's ever a question of, is it the money or the person will always win. And so therefore the money comes easily and frequently.
I love that. If you don't know who your customers are today, ladies, really get refined. And Justin and I literally just had a 2-hour meeting this week, and we were just talking about challenges, struggles, and just wanting to be of most service. And is exactly what you're talking about. And then become obsessed to serve them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's a great way to say it. I think we're all in alignment with that, but I love that. Become obsessed. People get obsessed with a lot of things. It's not about you. It's not about you. And on the video, it's not about you and you look sweaty, not sweaty. It's about who you're serving, right?
Yeah.
And what you're trying to provide them. So I love that. Krista, we got
raving fans that way too. When you do that, you have raving fans. Like my, when you have raving fans, you don't have to sell as hard because they sell for you. And here's the thing too. Yesterday I did an event and there's a couple times where people would be negative, but the people that were there would be defending me and be like,
oh yeah,
hey, it's like, that's what happens when you do it the right way. So
yeah,
you said earlier, what about the haters? The more you'll have more lovers than haters. And the people that are haters it's their own personal issue and self-loathing that makes them be so unkind. My daughter just the other day said that. And she goes, somebody was so mean to me, Mom. And she goes, I just realized that, man, they must really have a bad life that they have to treat me so bad. And I said, that's exactly right. So just like, honestly, feel hurt for them and feel, because that's really what it is. When people are that, there's trolls that hide behind their computer because they're miserable and have nothing else to do. Just remind yourself of that and block them. It's that easy,
Yeah. Love that, Krista. You're sharing so many great pearls of wisdom here. So where can the ladies listening learn more about you and connect with you?
Thank you again for having me. This is really great. I love this. It came totally different than I was expecting. So it was awesome. It was like a mental cleansing, so or healthy cleansing, right? So my name's Krista Mashore. It's Mashore, and it's with a K for Krista. You can just go find me on my social channels. Just Krista Mashore, KristaMashore.com. You can look me up on Facebook or Instagram and just say hi.
Awesome. All this information you guys can find on our show notes. Now we're going to transition to our final fabulous 3 questions. And the first one, Krista, is what's the most transformational book you ever read?
Think and Grow Rich from Napoleon Hill.
Great. Classic, right? Can go wrong
I
with
love
that.
it. Yeah.
Second question is what's the most powerful routine that you do to create a financially free and balanced life, whatever balance means to you?
Show it, pay it forward, show gratitude, and focus on all the things that I'm doing right.
Awesome. The last question is which woman, famous or not, has inspired you the most?
I love Oprah Winfrey. I just think that she's come from very humble beginnings, and I love that she's a woman of color and how she's just, it's like, here's a house and here's a house, and she's just so giving, and she's very inspiring.
Krista, thank you so much for being on. Appreciate you sharing your story and sharing not just strategies, because those are really important and helpful, but the thinking behind the strategies, the ways of being behind the strategies. So appreciate you so much and appreciate you being on here today.
Andressa, Liz, thank you for having me. I appreciate you guys are awesome. Bye, everybody.
If you enjoyed this podcast and want to receive updates on our next interviews, go to our website, therealestateinvestor.com. There, you can subscribe to our show, become part of our investor community, and get updates on upcoming episodes.
If you like our show, please share it with other women who would benefit. And don't forget to leave us a rating on iTunes. We'd really appreciate it. And as always, we encourage you to take one action as a result of today's show and put it into motion so you can live both a financially free and balanced life. Thanks for spending time with us.
Ciao.